everything from the frozen food aisle to takeout, delivery, all those type of scenarios are being really kind of shifted right now. Today we're going to dive into it. My name is Paul Barron. This is the Barron Report. This is our Market Movers session and series that we do from time to time that really kind of breaks down a few different companies. And one of them that we're going to be looking at today is Tattooed Chef. Now, Tattooed Chef, if you don't know them, they're a Toronto-based company that is doing amazing things in the frozen food space through the idea of utilizing culinary creations by basically a plant-based chef. And the concept is pretty solid. If you look at some of the trajectory of plant-based trends, this is something that's definitely moving in the right direction. We see a lot of activity on it, and we also do see, of course, some of the big stars when you look at companies like Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, and so forth. There's a lot of new players that are also starting to come out, and it's kind of an interesting space that I think is one that you should be watching. If you're not already investing in it, you may want to take some serious look at the food space, especially as it surrounds around technology kind of advancing what's happening in this space. Let's break down their financials and kind of look at this. This has basically been reported this is coming from Yahoo, but this was reported around the 10th of March. This was their most recent revenue report, which is increased their revenue by 12.8 million, or basically 48% over 39.6 million in the 3 months ended which is the quarter, obviously they're on an annual period, end of last year, compared to the 26.8 million in the 3 months that ended December 31st, 2019. So it's a pretty big jump for them to really kind of see this kind of growth. Now, we are continuing to see pretty amazing numbers coming out of these manufacturers, especially in the CPG side, because there has been a big move to where consumers have kind of shifted over the past year, basically their dining and eating habits, and a lot of that has been driven. I also want to show their full year financial data, which is very interesting to look at when you kind of look at where the potential is for this company and where they could go. Revenue was 148.5 million. That's a 75% increase compared to the 84.9 million in the prior year. That's a massive jump. Now, is that all COVID? Was it all kind of driven by the grocery expansion that they did? I think that's probably the direction, and we're going to show you some charts here in a second that kind of alludes to that very issue. Also, their branded product revenue was at a record 84.6 million, which is a 363% increase compared to the 18.3 million the year before. Net income, 45.4 million compared to 5.6. Obviously, that was a balloon year for them. That is a big deal, and there are some things I think that Tattooed Chef is doing right that is putting themselves kind of in the spotlight. Now, my question is, are they at maybe a stalled potential growth? Will we continue to see this kind of growth over the next year? My anticipation and research is showing probably not. And kind of the thing that really kind of looks at what I look at is, if you look at the distribution plan, this is some good information from Seeking Alpha that kind of breaks down where their growth was. And basically what their distribution points were up 183%, that's tremendous for a CPG program. But here's the scenario. Once that you have your distribution program outlined, there isn't a whole lot of additional growth. So granted, distribution expanded, and also the demand from a consumer side of things expanded as well in terms of where consumers were eating. All of that, I think, was the perfect storm in 2020 for Tattooed Chef. Now, whether or not 2021 is going to continue to go in that direction, I think there are some things that you have to look at, and one of them is the weekly frequency. And this is a breakdown that we basically did here on Foodable Labs that breaks down grocery, takeout, and dine out. Now, this is going over Q2, because I didn't want to go into Q1 because the dine out numbers would have been obviously falling completely off the chart, because that was essentially when everybody just shut their doors. But I did want to look at the Q2 20 numbers through Q1 21. And this is as much of March as we could get to still be able to apply it. There are still a few days left in Q1 21 that would help us kind of understand if this is going to continue with a trend. But if you look at the trend lines on grocery, grocery is the one that I'm most interested in here. And these are frequency, weekly frequency on a obviously a per week basis of transactions or occasions, as we call them. 2.91 obviously blew up almost to 3 times a week. There was a need for that because people were not eating out. That drops a little bit in Q3 to 2.73. And then in Q4, it drops down to 2.61 and down to 2.43. Now, we were looking at some national comparisons, which were around 1.7 to 1.8 times per week pre-COVID. So you can kind of see the grocery business is starting to normalize a little bit. Then if you look at takeout, on a pretty good trajectory here of 3.12, continuing to climb. They kind of leveled off a little bit there in Q3, and then in Q4, a nice little bump, and then in Q1 of 2021, another rise in terms of takeout. Dine out is kind of the same thing, obviously, very low percentage in terms of occasions in Q2 and Q3. But as you start to see Q4, it starts to loosen up to people almost going out 1 time per week. And now we are here in Q1 where we've eclipsed the 1 time per week average. And with those 2 trend lines heading upwards of both takeout and dine out, I think this is where we may see a little bit of a stall in terms of compounded growth for basically Tattooed Chef. I think you're going to be dealing with fewer occasions at the grocery chain, which is going to shift the dining habits back to restaurants. In pre-COVID, we had already eclipsed eating at home to really around 51, 52%. That may because of the retraining that has occurred, we think that may actually increase as we start to see things going. I also want to look at their top products. So when you look at the products that are doing really well for them, these are based on sentiment and mentions basically on social media. The buffalo cauliflower, a liter, cauliflower mac and cheese bowl, and then the buffalo cauliflower burgers, which I've tried, and they are absolutely amazing. Really a great product. But here's the thing. When you compare products like that to traditional dine-out and restaurant products, there's the misstep I think that some makers make. And if you look at someone like an Impossible Foods or even a Beyond Meat, they have taken the trajectory of really going after the food service space. Tattooed Chef, I believe they're trying to move in this direction, but they may be too far behind in being able to get a product out there to be able to kind of make an indent in at least where the market is shifting back to. If you look at consumer sentiment and referral, this is data that really kind of tells the tale here. And this is based on their own products. So you can kind of see the climb there in early Q1, Q2, stabilized in Q3, dropped just a little bit in Q4. And then we had a little bit more of a significant drop in Q1. The orange line is the one that I'm really interested in, and that is the referral. The referral aspect of this is probably more important than anything for a CPG product, because this is when people are talking about it, they're saying, hey, you really should try this. This is something you should do. They're putting it on Instagram, Twitter. Hey, I tried this, boom, and followers start to get in there. This is something that started to slow significantly in Q1 for Tattooed Chef. They had a really good referral sentiment, which was at 76.5 in the beginning this time last year, essentially dropping a little bit and then rising again in Q3, I think it was, and then dropping in Q4. And here we are in Q1 21, and we're at now a 60.9. This is not necessarily a low number in terms of sentiment, but it is a big drop off from the 71.2 of the previous quarter. What that tells us is that sentiment is not bad for this company. Don't get me wrong. This company has some really great products, and they're doing some very impressive things. and consumers like them. I think where this company may start to falter is not in their product, it's in the shift of where products are being consumed. And that is most CPG's issues that they faced in going the grocery route, where we had pre-COVID, we had seen some declining sales. And here we are in post-COVID, and we're looking at basically kind of a new landscape of where we're going. Some of the challenges I think that they are going to be dealing with, and that they have to be able to address, is either one, they're going to have to address the food service market. Some other things that they need to do here in terms of the indicators, when you look at the buy, sell, hold of, here's my list, hold for now based on Q1 performance. Now, we're getting ready to see Q1 performance here in about another 30 days. This is when I would make a serious decision on Tattooed Chef. If we see any kind of decline and not a trajectory that is in alignment with their previous four quarters, because when you look at distribution, the increased distribution is going to help them increase overall sales. But if we get the grocery counts starting to decline, this is the key thing that we need to look for that will tell us whether or not Tattooed Chef is a long-term investment, or if they could fall prey to basically a repositioning of the market space. I think they were in the right place at the right time in 2020, which exploded their sales. It was a great thing to get that company off the ground, and the product was in the right place at the right time. A lot of new plant-based products have started to hit the market. Obviously, we know what's going on with Beyond Meat, and I think they're going in the right direction. I fear, though, that we are going to see a little bit of a correction here with Tattooed Chef. I don't necessarily have a price target for that yet. I haven't done the full fundamental analysis, but I will do that for you. So if you guys want it, make sure and leave the comments below. We'd love to kind of get your feedback on whether or not a fundamental analysis on Tattooed Chef and how they would potentially grow if they were to look at some other alternatives in terms of their market penetration and how that might work. Last thing is private label. I think private label is one of those things that could really work for this company. They have already indicated some other private label portion of their business, but they kind of fell off of that in terms of their overall production. If they get back into private label, it could be an opportunity that I think could help a lot of upstarts, one, bring the product in, and also help Tattooed Chef maybe become a platform for plant-based products. That's going to be the interesting part. If you look at distribution, if you look at where they could go in food service, if they can go there, and then also if they go into private label, I think these are some key manufacturing opportunities for them that could really extend them into a long-term hold. But for now, it is a hold, but it's only a hold until their Q1 performance numbers come out. At that time, we have to step back, take a real good look. If they show any kind of decline in not tracking with their previous 4 quarters in terms of growth, then we have seen potentially the end of their compounded growth period, unless they make some strategic moves to start to get this company moving in some new channels. But we're going to, of course, stay tuned right here and really kind of break this down as we see more and more of this here on the Barron Report. We do these market mover episodes from time to time to really kind of give you guys some insights on some of the data, but also on some of the understanding of where we see the market shifting, because a lot of this is about consumer shifts that we've been recording for almost a decade now. But a lot of this really starts to flow into the business models that some of these companies are using. So we'll definitely continue this one. Tattooed Chef is a hold right here from the Barron Report. Make sure, and of course, as you guys know, we don't give stock advice, but we do give our opinions on where the market is moving. We put a lot of research into this and do our best to help you understand what a company is doing behind the scenes, and maybe where the trends are going from a consumer demand standpoint that hopefully helps you make a good decision in gathering all your research before you make your final decision on where you're going to do your investing. So make sure and stay tuned right here. If you're catching this over on the podcast, make sure and leave a rating. That's how we get great feedback from you. It's also how I learn on things maybe you want to hear about on the podcast side. If you have an idea for a show here on the Barron Report, just shoot us an email to producer@foodabletv.com. And of course, you can always hit me up on Twitter @PaulBarron. We'll catch you next time right here on the Barron Report.